Welcome to another episode of Give It a Nudge Season 5. Today's going to be fun. Today we have got Nathan on the show. Now, I could tell you what Nathan does, but I think it's going to be better if Nathan tells you himself. I always think it's better. Nathan, thank you very much for coming on the show. I'll explain to everyone how we met in a minute, but first, tell us your name and tell us what Eventpod do.
So I'm Nathan Bouquet. So Eventpod, we're essentially a corporate events company. Work with B2B clients, and essentially we partner strategically with businesses for them to be able to build relationships with their key customers around a variety of different style of events. So that could be anything from major sporting events, concerts, cultural events, to more boutique experiences.
Cool. I'm glad you said the surname, because that was the one thing I was sure I was going to get wrong. I always look at it on your email and go, why did he say that? So you and I met here at Tankstream.
We did.
The barbecue, from memory.
We did, yes, down at Haymarket there.
Yeah, that was good. That was a few weeks back. So Tankstream has brought us together, and here we are in Tankstream filming.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really keen to get into Eventpod, why it's different. And you mentioned some things there that I picked up on that I wouldn't have thought, such as cultural events and things like that. To me, and maybe it's my age, but corporate events to me have been rugby, soccer, horse racing, that kind of stuff, polo, all those kinds of things. And I never really thought of event companies doing much outside of that because, well, no one's ever approached me to try and sell me that. But before we get sort of into the products and so forth and how that's maybe changed and how you got through COVID and all those fun things, let's talk about you a little bit and where you came from, how you ended up in events. Is it something you've always done, and how you ended up becoming a co-owner of Eventpod? So don't have to go back to childhood, but go back to sort of, how did you end up in events first up, I guess?
Yeah, so by accident, really.
Awesome.
So, look, came out of school and I didn't do the uni thing like a lot of my mates were doing. Yep. Thought that I'd had enough of school by the end of year 12.
I was with you on that.
Yeah, and so I actually went straight into a straight commission kind of sales role where we're in the middle of shopping centres selling applications to credit cards and phones and all that sort of fun stuff.
The little cardboard stand stuff. That's hardcore.
Yeah. So did that for a while.
Where were you? Were you in like a really interesting rough area or a beautiful area, or where did they put you?
So you kind of moved around a bit. I was wherever they were contracted with different shopping centres.
Where's the worst shopping centre you went?
Oh, it was a tough day out of Lakemba one day. But look, you're in the Westfields and major malls and stuff like that. And then moved to a different company where we were doing the same thing. We were doing kind of more door-to-door stuff around security alarms and that type of stuff. And then came out of that and started doing personal training and working in the gym.
How did you do that? I did door-to-door sales as well. I just stayed in sales. Where do you go from door-to-door sales to gym? Because gyms, and I'm not mentioning your age, but gyms have become very popular in the last 5 years. Prior to that, it's been a sort of slow and steady growth.
Yeah, it has. So, we're going back now to, 2002?
Yep.
So I think I'd kind of run my race in like just the straight commission. And also, it's the hours and stuff weren't particularly great. You were kind of, working for an 18-year-old, it just really doesn't suit the lifestyle all that much. But when we moved on and I started at the gym, which was my local gym, so knew the owner personally, and just sort of wanted to get into that. And I've always been active and around sports and fitness and whatnot. So I did that for probably 3 years.
Oh wow!
And helped the owner open up a couple of gyms away from the flagship.
Yep.
And then I kind of got to the end of that period and was looking for a bit of a change. Spent 3 months in recruitment, funnily enough, doing labour hire. And fair to say, that's the reason I stopped that.
All right, we'll leave that one alone. We'll just move straight on to the next subject.
Yeah, and then so I was kind of in a little bit of limbo. I felt I wanted to do something in corporate space, but didn't really know what I wanted to do. And the owner of the gym that I was working with was actually good mates with my business partner now, Adam King. Made the introduction, and we started in a company back in 2005, which was kind of the monopolised the market really, I suppose, around corporate hospitality sales. Before they came along, like rights holders didn't really sell too much. Stadiums didn't have internal sales teams, so they'd kind of go around and kind of do it for them. So we had a dining room at the stadium, or 2 dining rooms at the stadium, which was very much focused around major sports and the major concerts and stuff out of the core at Homebush.
And that was yours in terms of, as a business, that was yours to sell to whatever, right?
Yeah, correct.
And you did private stuff out there outside of like sporting events as well, or?
So look, at that point in time, we probably didn't. It was really focused around those kind of big marquee events.
And that's the stuff I remember, right? That's the cricket, the rugby, that's the things that's what I think of events.
Yeah, exactly. And I think probably there's had to be a bit of an education piece, probably over the last decade or so. And that's kind of one of the reasons that Eventpod came to fruition. There was a bit of a culture around the industry at the time. And, Adam and I have always been very much about the relationship first. And the experience will sell itself. So we really but we also did notice that there was a bit of a shift in the market in terms of, whilst the major sports are always going to have their place, and they're probably still a bit of a bread and butter area for us, people were starting to look for different ways to do things, whether that be things as simple as a food and wine experience, or doing things around theatre, or stuff around the Archibald Prize, which we do an annual event for.
So let's talk about that. So what if you take out sports, take out rugby and the sort of norm that everyone thinks, what other things are there? So you mentioned a couple there. Have you got sort of some key areas?
Yeah, so look, probably one of our biggest ones out of those, which we do annually, is the Archibald Prize.
Interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, so longest standing art prize in Australia from 1921.
Is that right? 1921, didn't know that.
But they do an annual exhibition every year. And obviously the background around it is that it's portrait painting for whoever, really.
And that's true, right? Anyone can enter, isn't it? There's no, as long as you get it in time,
so from Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, it's a great opportunity for people to kind of show their wares. They get, thousands of entries per year. But what we do is something around the finals. So they'll do a finals exhibition normally over about a 3 or 4 month period at the Art Gallery in New South Wales.
That long?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And then we do a single night event where we get a complete shutdown of the gallery, do a private guided tour of the exhibition, speak to a few of the pieces, and then we do like a dinner and stuff afterwards inside the gallery. We'll get a guest speaker along and some live entertainment and that type of thing. So
that's a super cool. And who's doing that? We're talking large corporates doing this kind of stuff, or?
Yeah, I think most of the stuff that we do tends to be kind of medium to larger size corporates. I think just from a price point factor. But,
that's a super interesting night out. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, look, it's one that's been really well received. I think for a couple of reasons. One, we've tried to keep it a pretty intimate top style of function, so it works well at that very senior C level. It's probably driven more as a partner event, so you do tend to find that when it's the footy or the cricket or the sports, it tends to be a lot more male dominated. And also with the increase with female power around the C-suite and senior management roles, they're not always going to be interested, nor are the customers going to always be interested in those major sports. So we need to find something that complemented those things that companies still wanted to get involved with.
Interesting.
And so that was one of the ones.
I love that. What else is there? What else you got that's unusual? Is there anything weird?
Well, probably one event that we've spoken about, which is a little bit sport, but it's also a little bit
weird,
different, is aqua rugby.
I'm looking forward to this. It's what, in 2 weeks?
Soon,
I think so.
Oh yeah, 2 weeks, 11th to 13th.
Which is rugby on a floating platform in Darling Harbour.
That's it. Jimmy Galvin, I'm talking to you. We're pitching you.
That's going to be super cool, I think.
Yeah.
Like I said, I went that first year and it didn't happen because of the weather. I missed it last year, but this year it's become quite big. And I'm guessing you do, being in Sydney, we probably have quite a few. I would imagine you would do the those crazy boat racing, the Red Bull boat racing. What's that called?
Like the dragon boats.
Not the dragon boats. It's like the Grand Prix of
Sailing GP.
Sailing GP. That's an awesome event.
Yeah, so we weren't involved with that per se, but we actually do our own regattas where people will take a team on boats and we'll call them like on the 40-foot Beneteaus and things like that, and we'll do like a best of 3 America's Cup style race. So we normally have those pitched on March and November.
Have you done any esports yet? Thinking about it, because that's becoming. Yeah. I mean, it's still quite young, but there's huge audiences for that.
Yeah, there is. I just don't know the corporate level yet.
No.
But I'm sure there probably will be at some point in time.
It's got to be coming.
Well, that next generation that comes through, right, is seems to be a lot more into that type of stuff. So stay tuned. Who knows?
And what else? So we've got, and you mentioned theatre. Obviously, got the Archibald, but I'm just assuming, how does that work? I mean, obviously, a theatre is normally a 2-4 person kind of thing. How do you do that?
Yeah, so we obviously, so one of the I suppose, strengths of our business is that we've set up over, both Adam and I, probably in nearly 20 years in this industry, a large supplier network. So being able to get access to different venues and things like that is kind of part of the solution that we provide.
Yeah.
So with venues, we're obviously getting access to private spaces and things like that, where they can be able to have their group entertain before a show and somewhere to go during the intermission. And then we'll also be able to get access to things like house seats and that type of thing, to create more of an experience than what you could just get.
So let's talk about the benefits of this, because I know that sometimes this kind of stuff is seen as a bit of a jolly. It's seen as a bit of a way to spend time and spend companies' money tax-free and all these other sort of things that people talk about. But there's a lot more to it than that, right? And I'm assuming that you guys would have some pretty compelling arguments when you speak to someone new, because they're not cheap, these things, What are those things? Well, how does this really affect your business? What are the positives of this? How does it work?
Yeah, look, I think that at the end of the day, every business is run by people, and I still believe that, we believe that relationships are the foundation for anything moving forward. Whether it's internally within a company or with the clients or prospects that people are trying to engage with, there has to be some level of connection, and I think for a business, being able to do things that are away from that traditional work environment allows them to share an experience, right? And we believe that great relationships start with great experiences. Yep. I mean, if you think back to your personal life and you'll think about how you met your wife or group of mates, or, whatever those large capture items are in your mind, you can always go back to a point in time, and it's very reminiscent and just brings you back.
It's true.
And I think that being able to do that on a corporate level just helps solidify trust from business to business, and it also allows people to build that long-standing relationship over time. I suppose from a direct ROI point of view, most people would utilise our services to be able to connect and gain access to people and create that personal engagement.
Take it to another level kind of thing.
Yeah, well, to be able to move opportunities through their pipeline, to be able to close more deals, to be able to reward existing clients, or to be able to grow their existing accounts. And I think bottom line, that's going to help everyone moving forward.
So how long has the business been going?
So Eventpod started in 2011.
Okay, so a long time.
So, what are we, 13 years nearly?
And so what have you seen the changes? Obviously we had massive event during that period with COVID, where events were gone.
Yep.
One, what did you do? Did you go online like everyone else, or did you just write it out? And two, have you seen a change in attitude since then?
Yeah, so we wrote it out.
Just wrote it out, literally?
Yeah, which was...
Fun?
Yeah, there was a couple of times where we really didn't know what was going to happen. We just didn't know when we were going to be able to get back. We didn't know what sort of appetite there was going to be for people to get back together and that type of thing.
How did you deal with that? Like, you're in a business that's about connecting people and events.
Yep.
You haven't gone online.
Yep.
We no one knew what was happening, right? At least you're in Sydney, not Melbourne, I guess, in some degree. But how did you, and I'm talking about you personally, not so much as an event. How did you deal? That's a awful experience, I would imagine. That's an experience you'll forget for all the wrong reasons.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think the biggest challenge for me was just the not knowing. Like, I mean, you've always got something that you can kind of look forward to, and you've always got some sort of timeline, right, that you'd like to work towards. Whereas with this, it was just open-ended, right, and unknown. So that was pretty scary. And being a father of 3 kids, you've got to try and put food on the table. And if you're not able to write business, then
it's not good.
that becomes a bit of a challenge. But look, thankfully, during that period of time, we built up a lot of goodwill with clients that we'd worked with over time. They understood the circumstances, and they were happy to kind of just hold monies in credit rather than get refunds, carry things over to, which we knew that events would come back at some stage, we just didn't know when, but people were willing to do that. So that kind of helped us out a lot during that period.
Do you reckon that was your hardest period in running a business?
100%.
Because you learn a lot if you haven't run a business before, you run a business. It's fun, but it's awful in so many more ways than it's fun, right? But it kind of evens out to be more fun than, even though there's longer times of being not fun. God, I articulated that badly. But that would have been the hardest thing, right? Without question, just the complete unknown.
Yeah.
Do you think you run the business in a different way now, having had that? I mean, the chances of another pandemic, very, very unlikely. Like, when was the last one? Hundreds of years ago. So, history tends to repeat itself. But has it changed the way you run things and the way you see things from a business perspective, I guess?
I think we probably have learnt a little bit out of it around,
bit leaner,
I suppose, having to safeguard yourselves in some aspects. But I think we've always run a fairly lean business anyway, so I think that's one of the things that did help us out during 100%. That period of time. But I think the one thing that we did find is when things did reopen.
Did it boom?
Like 2022 and 2023 were 2 of our biggest years that we've had.
Yeah.
And I think that the penny drop moment, maybe for a lot of businesses who were probably waning a little bit coming into that, kind of did actually recognise the value of not being able to do things
I think we all did, didn't we?
I mean, Zoom, took off, and Microsoft Teams and all that sort of stuff. But there's something that you can't replicate, like we are now, Steve, sitting in the same space. There's an energy that's created between people.
There is an energy. Are you hitting on me?
Right, do you know? Looking fella.
Do you know? I remember, and I don't know if you ever did this. We tried to have a Zoom dinner party, right? So it was, I think it was just 3 couples. So there's not that many people.
Yep.
I don't know whether you tried this or not, but when you're sitting at a table, whether you end up with the couples splitting and having boys and girls, or whether you end up being mixed, it just sort of works. Everyone talks, it's fine. When you're all on Zoom, only one person can talk at once, because if 2 people try and talk, it doesn't work. But if 2 people try and talk in a normal dining room, it's fine. So either everyone's feeling really awkward, or everyone's sitting there listening to one person. It was the worst experience of my life. We ended up, the boys actually got more computers and went and had a separate one in a separate dining room, the girls, and that still didn't work. So You're right, it just, as much as you can connect with people, it's not the same. It's just a completely different vibe, completely different energy.
Yeah.
So have there been any changes from a client perspective since it came back? Have you had different kinds of requests? Do you feel people are utilising it more now? I mean, obviously there was that big sort of initial boom, but do you think that's going to continue? Is there a different kind of demand for different events? Have you sort of pivoted? What sort of happened?
Yeah, look, I think, as I said before, like probably the big events that have happened over the last, like Taylor Swift was huge, right?
Massive. Well, you told me best, was it top 5? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so obviously we'll just put this out there.
Tay-Tay.
We'll never be sold on the music. But
I can't say that. This show we'll get trolled if you say something like that.
But look, in terms of production and experience, like having done this for as long as I have, it was top 5. Like, it was unbelievable to have somebody who was out on stage for 3 hours, can play multiple instruments, and just engage with the crowd like they did, was absolutely incredible to be part of. And it's and for her to be so young, I think she's only 34, and she already
I don't even think she's that, is she?
And she's got a couple of generations of fans that are already like rusted on. It's pretty incredible. So
I mean, it was a force of nature, I think it was described as.
Yeah.
So if she's top 5, do you have a top 1, or are you not willing to disclose that?
Oh, look, best event I've still went to.
There is one.
Yeah. 2005, Australia for Uruguay World Cup qualifier. First time the Socceroos had qualified for a World Cup in 32 years. standing up there when Aloisi scored that.
I remember
that
seeing it on
penalty.
TV.
Yeah, and I was there with probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 mates, and it's just still the one that goes back. And yeah, look, but was at the Bledisloe Cup in '99 when there was like 109,000 people before they took the wings off the stadium.
Yep.
That was incredible.
Oh, I remember those wings. Yeah.
2000 Olympics, I was there at the athletics for the nights.
Olympics were good. I enjoyed the Olympics.
Yeah, with Kathy Freeman won. So that was, been to some crackers.
Yeah.
But obviously not all of them corporately. But in terms of like that, definitely is an experience. Whether I was there corporately or not, that was right up there.
Okay, well, let's talk about the future. So Eventpod is going strong. I see you pacing around on the phone because you walk when you talk. So I always see you pacing around. Events are changing. We've got VR coming in. Obviously, that's a massive thing. The virtual world. We've got augmented reality. So the combination of the two coming through. Yep. What do you see? Changes coming in your world and to events. How do you see that changing in the next few years? Have we already got augmented coming in to live events or not?
Oh, look, probably not so much with the events that we do.
Yeah.
I think probably you would find that a little bit more. I know that industry events are really starting to shift and move into that sort of space a little bit more.
There was one in London, a Da Vinci exhibition, I think, where you had to wear glasses. I didn't get there to see it, but I think that was one. But do you see that happening? Do you see? And what about the virtual coming into a live event when you're not there? So, for example, there's a game of something you want to see in Argentina, but you're sitting in Sydney and you can essentially put a headset on and feel like you're in the stadium. I mean, that's got to be coming, surely.
Yeah, look, I think there'll be a place for it. I still just don't know whether or not, from a corporate perspective, if that's going to be the way that it goes. And I think that the space that we play in is always going to be centred around people.
Yeah.
In person. And whether that's getting groups of clients to travel and do those types of things and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's definitely a possibility to do that, and we have done that before. But I think that like that augmented stuff, I think that's probably going to be more of a consumer based scenario as opposed to 10 or 20 corporates sitting around all with a bit of VR headgear on and.
Yeah. No, well, I don't know.
But who knows?
Tech companies are taking over the world, right? Who knows? Well, let's go back to Eventpod. I mean, I know you and I spoke about this before. Like, you kind of give back to events. You're almost feeding back into the community, right? You guys do some stuff with sort of smaller and more sponsorship. Is that how you're sort of coining it?
Yeah. So we actually do a sponsorship for Winston Hills Athletics Club. So I used to be an athlete there, was there for 10 years, was a club captain back in '97.
Yeah.
And then when my boys were old enough, I took over as an age manager and coach down there back in 2019. So I've had a group of boys which are now under 10s for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to be able to get back into the community and into grassroots. And I just know how important it was, when people were around and, when I was coming through, when we saw businesses putting back in, and that allows them to, get new equipment or, improve their facilities or whatever it might be, right? But it's also just to be able to share the experience with these kids that are coming through and help that, be able to provide something for the next generation, because I think, as I said before, I'm a big believer in fitness and health and all that type of thing.
Yep.
And being able to be involved with something that's really driving that, I think is pretty important.
So have you got growth planned this year?
What's that, sorry?
Have you got growth planned this year?
It's not something that's number one on the priority list right now. We've got a couple of things happening behind the scenes, but
are you going to tell us? Can you break the news?
Not just at the moment.
We can always edit it out. Honestly, we'll edit it out. I promise. I swear to God. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, all right. Let's finish this up. Tell me. I want to hear that, because I do see you pacing. When you're pacing and you're talking, give me the pitch. Why, if you're going to book events, why is someone coming to use Eventpod? Where's the difference?
Look, I think the biggest thing for us is that we're an all-in-one solution, but more importantly, we're an added resource to a business. So we understand how the time it takes to be able to pull these things together behind the scenes, and that not all businesses have got a designated events team that can go out and do all that legwork. So for us, we basically can be a resource for as much or as little as you need. But given that we've got a substantial number of access points through our supply network, we can just make it a lot easier, a lot smoother, and all you really need to be able to do is just turn up on the day, invite your clients and enjoy it.
And do you go to the events often and babysit? Yeah.
And host, yeah.
It's tough times. Nathan, thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's good to hear events are back. It's good to hear you rode that storm. I can't even imagine for us, our business exploded during COVID, so it was quite the opposite. I can't imagine what it must have been like sitting there with nothing to do and not knowing where it's coming. That would have just been, well done for getting through that, mate.
I appreciate it.
I will keep watching you pace up and down and keep watching you. And I will be at that Aqua Rugby with you, which I'm in a couple of weeks, which looks fun.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that, mate. Sharing a Bollinger and...
Always sharing a Bollinger. Well, we're sharing a Bollinger? I might keep one.
Yeah. Maybe we can have one each. It'll be fine.
Mate, thanks for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, guys. That's the end of another show. We will see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe.